What we need to understand is that the issue of Palestine and the issue of Al-Aqsa has been an ongoing topic since as long as I can remember. And it is not just my lifetime, I believe it is the lifetime of every single person who is sitting in the audience. Because even though the modern state of Israel was created in 1948, but the concept of colonizing Palestine, it almost began 100 years ago. So every single person who is sitting in the audience, he has been hearing about the issue of Palestine and the topic of Al-Aqsa since they were born. It's a very old topic, it's a topic that is more than 100 years old. And because this topic is so old, and this conflict has been going on for so many years in that part of the world, unfortunately, many of us, we tend to forget it and neglect it in the light of the newest tragedies. Because after a few years, as you brothers know, after a few years, another major tragedy takes place. So for example, the issue of Kashmir, the issue of Afghanistan, the issue of Iraq, the issue of Syria, the issue of Burma, the issue of famines, earthquakes, floods, and the list goes on and on and on. But there is no doubt, and I want to say it as clearly as I can, that the tragedy of Palestine is the number one tragedy on that list. Out of all the wounds and out of all of the tragedies that this ummah is facing, the tragedy of Palestine is the single most greatest political tragedy of this century. And this needs to be emphasized over and over and over again. And our children, especially our younger Muslim brothers and sisters, they need to be reminded about it. They need to be taught about it. And not just our children, not just our younger Muslim brothers and sisters, even us, because we forget it and we neglect it. So we need to be continuously to be reminded about the status of Palestine. So we never ever forget our history. We never ever forget the importance of this land. We never ever forget the place that Al-Aqsa occupies in our heart. But today's khutbah, my dear respected brothers and sisters in Islam, today's khutbah is going to be slightly different than most of the khutbahs about Palestine. Normally when people talk about Palestine, they talk about the blessings of Palestine. And they talk about the ayat and the hadith about that. And which is an important topic, and I have done it in the past. What we are going to do today, inshallah, today's khutbah in particular is dedicated to our younger Muslim generation. I want to help our younger Muslim generation to be able to understand and defend the Muslim perspective on this issue. I want to arm them with knowledge. I want to arm them with facts. I want to teach them as much as I can in this short period of time, so that they will be able to understand, so that they will be able to engage in a more healthy discussion, in a more healthy debate. Because I remember a few weeks ago when Donald Trump made that announcement, I heard one of our younger Muslim brothers saying that I do not understand why the Palestinian people cannot agree with that decision. What is so big about it? Why cannot they just agree with the peace process? In other words, he is absorbing the propaganda that is in this environment, that is in this culture. And he is assuming that the fault lies only with the Muslims. And I'm using these words very carefully. I'm not blaming the Jews here. But what I'm saying to say that he assumes that the fault lies only with the Muslims. And I do not blame him, because he's not hearing the other side. He's only hearing the propaganda that is in the media, that is all around us. So he absorbs what he hears, and he only criticizes the Muslims for having failed in this issue. So it's very important for all of us who are sitting here. It's very, very important for all of us to continue to provide counter narrative. The narrative that emphasizes the truth. The narrative that emphasizes the reality about the situation. And as you all brothers know that we have a very limited time, so this khutbah is going to be about a specific criticism that is raised against the Palestinian issue. We have a limited time, so I'm only going to mention 3 points. How many points? 3 points. 3 points of criticism, especially for our younger Muslim brothers and sisters, especially, who when they hear this propaganda, they do not know how to respond. They do not know what to say. So inshallah, in this short period of time, 3 things that are raised against the Palestinian issue from the Muslim perspective, I will try to help all of you to understand what is the proper way to respond to all of these criticisms. So let's begin, inshallah. Number 1, the first issue that is raised against the Palestinian issue, and many people, they raise this issue on the news channel, on the media, on the talking show. And by the way, you don't need to believe me. You don't need to trust me. You can go ahead and do your own research. And you can confirm it by your own self. But whenever there is a talk show taking place about the state of Israel, you will not find a Palestinian representative. You won't. Their viewpoint is missing almost all the time. Very rarely you come across them. Very rarely. And that's why even our kids don't know about this perspective. So the first thing that they say is that you people do not even recognize the legitimacy of the state of Israel. The Palestinian people, they do not even recognize the state of Israel, so it's not our fault if they are being treated this way. So just because you do not understand or recognize the legality of the state of Israel, for them, then this justifies the harsh treatment. So to this we say, and to this we respond, in order to discuss the legality of the state of Israel, first and foremost, we need to discuss who got to decide the state of Israel in the first place. Who decided the state of Israel in the first place? We say to our critics, just put yourself in the shoes of the Palestinian people. Put yourself in the shoes of the people whose land has been carved up by the people who were not even part of their land. Just put yourself in the shoes of the people whose land has been handed over to another ethnicity, to another group. You know, the Palestinian people, they will say, what right does the British have to have a mandate over our land? What right does the League of Nations have to have a vote about the existence of a new nation state? What right does the external occupier have to carve up our own land and distribute it and give it to the people who are living outside of our land? You imagine, mashallah, you people are intelligent people, you tell me, if an external occupier comes into your house, if an intruder comes into your house and he occupies your garage, and then slowly he occupies your living room, and then slowly he occupies your bedroom, and then slowly he forces you to live in your backyard in a makeshift tent, and then eventually because of some documents or whatever, even the court of law rules against you, and it rules in the favor of the occupier, the external occupier. Don't you think you at least have a right to say that I don't care what the court of law says, this is my house, this is the house of my ancestors? Even though if the court has been convinced through some bribery or through some deceit, I don't care, it is still my house. It is my house. Don't you think at least you have an ethical right or a moral right to say this or to disagree? And I can give you many examples. One example that I always give, the Native Americans from America. If a Native American from America, he comes and criticizes the colonialism of the European white settlers of the 16th and 17th century. He comes and he says, what right does these people have to come over to our land and take our land and put us in the concentration camps or the settlement that they have now for Native Americans? Don't you think even if you disagree with him, you would at least say, brother, I know where you're coming from. I understand your perspective. I understand that you have a legal, you have a legitimate, valid perspective. Don't you at least say that? I will give you another example, and this is the example of a person who is very well known among the secular culture. Secular people consider this person as the role model, peacemaker of our time. I'm talking about Gandhi. Yeah, people from Pakistan don't like Gandhi, but the secular people, they love Gandhi. They consider him the peacemaker of our time. Do you know that Gandhi was opposed to the idea of partition? He was opposed to the creation of Pakistan to the day he died. And in his biography, I'm quoting it here, in his biography you will find it, he said, I will never ever recognize the ethical correctness of Pakistan. He never recognized Pakistan. Never. Still you considered him to be the what? The role model, the peacemaker of our time. Because back in the day they divided land into what? Into Pakistan and India. And he said, I never agree with that. He said, if it happens, it happens. I can't do anything about it, but I will never agree with Pakistan. I will never accept Pakistan. And of course, I am from Pakistan. My parents are from Pakistan, so I disagree with Gandhi. But the point is, doesn't Gandhi have a perspective? Doesn't Gandhi have a perspective? Isn't he saying that I'm never going to accept Pakistan? And even if I disagree with Gandhi, doesn't he have a right to make this claim? He has a legal perspective. He has a legitimate perspective. And this perspective does not make him an evil person in and of itself. So we say to our critics that the Palestinian people have a legitimate perspective. It was their land. Nobody asked them. And the fact that many of us do not recognize the state of Israel is because the way things have happened to them. And they have every right to have that kind of perspective, even if you disagree with that. This leads me to my second point. And the second point is, so if you criticize the legitimacy of the state of Israel, then it means you people are anti-Semitic. Do you know what I'm talking about? You people are anti-Semitic. It's a very common charge. You criticize the legitimacy of the state of Israel and you are anti-Semite. And as a matter of fact, this is the definition of anti-Semitism. In America, the State Department of America define anti-Semitism. Go and search it. Find it for yourself. It's a long paragraph, but there is this one phrase. Anybody, listen to this carefully, anybody who criticizes the state of Israel is anti-Semite. And by the way, our own president, I don't know if I should say our own president or not, but because I'm living in Scotland, it can be a blasphemy if I say our own president. But the president of England, not the president, sorry, the Prime Minister of England, the day Donald Trump announced and he declared Jerusalem as a part of Israel, the next day, Prime Minister of England, she said the exact same thing. She said, even though we disagree with Donald Trump, but anybody who criticizes the state of Israel, he is anti-Semite. He said it. She said it. Now to this, we strongly disagree with this. And we say that you are doing a disservice by bringing anti-Semitism into the criticism of a political entity. And here we Muslims, we need to be very careful, my brothers. We Muslims have to be very careful. We should not say anything derogatory about the Jewish people. Understand this. Because many times, unfortunately, some of our preachers, some of our clerics, some of our Muslim masses, they say un-Islamic thing about Jewish people. This is not from the Quran, this is not from the Sunnah. Quran tells us, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu kunu qawwamin. Stand by justice. Or you people who believe, stand by justice, even if it goes against your own self. And even if it favors your enemy. Don't allow your love for yourself or don't allow your hatred for your enemy to stop you from doing justice to other people. I'dilu huwa aqrabu littaqwa. Do justice. This is the essence of taqwa. This is the teaching of the Quran. Let me give you this one example. I don't know if I will be able to share this third point with you, but I want to share this one point with you. Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, this thing was demonstrated by the treatment of Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu. Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu conquered Al-Aqsa. We all know about this, right? Yeah. But in those days, Al-Aqsa, Palestine, was ruled by the Christian people. Yeah. And they didn't allow the Jews to live there. They desiccated the holiest side of the Jewish people that they now call the temple. They desiccated it. They converted it into a junkyard. They converted it into a dumpster. They would do their najasa there. They would throw their najasa there to show people that we disagree with you. To show people that we have a different faith and our faith is superior than your faith. But then alhamdulillah, Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu conquered Palestine. And when he conquered Palestine, he was given the tour of Palestine, of Jerusalem. And he visited the church of the Holy Sepulchre. The Holy Sepulchre. And this is the holiest church in the Christian tradition. And it's in Jerusalem. When Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu visited that church, the minister of that church said to Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, why don't you pray your salah here? We all know about that example, right? Why don't you pray your salah here? It was an Asr time. Why don't you pray your salah here? Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu said, I'm not going to pray my salah here. Because if I pray my salah here today, there is a possibility that in the future, some of my followers they will come and they will destroy your church. Out of the respect for me, they will destroy your church and they will build a masjid here. So I will not pray here, I will pray outside. Think about this. He wanted to protect the future of the holiest side of Christianity. He is the leader of the Muslims, by the way. He's the Khalifa of the Muslim, and he said, I want to protect your church. I'm not going to pray here because I don't want some fanatics to come after me and destroy your church and make an excuse because Umar prayed here, this is our land now. This is Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu. He prayed outside. He walked outside 100 feet, 20 meters away from that church. And to this day, Masjid Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu is 100 feet away from that church. If you want to pray in Jerusalem, you have to walk from that church to Masjid Umar, 100 feet. You go up and down, you walk up and down, and you go and pray where Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu prayed. This is our Khalifa. This is the leader of the Muslim. And after he finished his prayer, he asked the people, where is the temple, the holy temple of the Jews? Where is that mount that is considered to be the real place, the real haikal of Sulaiman? And he was told where it was. And he saw it. He saw that it had filth and it had najasa. You know, it had dust. And Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, the Khalifa of the Muslim, he began picking up that filth, that najasa, the droppings of the people with his own hands. And he began cleaning up the holy side that belonged to whom? Muslims? Jews. Why? Because in our tradition, we respect Isa alayhi salatu wasalam and we respect Musa alayhi salatu wasalam. In our tradition, we love Dawud alayhi salam, we love Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam. Whatever side made holy in their time, it is considered to be holy in our time as well. So anyone who said there was some kind of animosity between Muslim and the Jews, they are ignorant people. They don't even know the basics of history. So that's what I was saying, my dear brothers and my dear respected brothers and sisters in Islam. We have to be very, very careful. Religion is one thing, Zionism is another. I don't have time to talk about Zionism. But religion is one thing and Zionism is another. We do not mix up the two. And among the Jews, there are people who are righteous people, who speak out against Zionism. And one group I want to mention in particular, they are called Natura Korta. Natura Korta. These people are Jewish people, and you will always find them in the Palestinian demonstration on the Palestinian side. You will always find them wearing religious garment, and they are Orthodox Jews, and they will have statements against Zionists. And they say that Zionism is the greatest evil ever to come from that part of the world. They are Jewish people, and they are opposed to Zionism, and they are the supporters of the Palestinian people, and there are many Jews like them who are against Zionists. So we Muslims have to be very careful. Do not say any derogatory thing about the people who believe in Musa alayhi salatu wasalam as the Prophet of Allah. There are people among the Jews who are righteous people, and we love them and respect them for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And yes, there are among them who are Zionists, and we oppose them. But even though we have our disagreement with Christianity and Judaism, theologically we disagree with them, but at the same time, as a religious minority, Islam always gave Jews the freedom of worship, the freedom to make their own synagogues, the freedom to be who they are. And that's why Jews in medieval times, the largest concentration of Jews in medieval times, they were in the Muslim lands. In Turkey, in Iran, in North Africa, they were in the Muslim lands, in the Muslim sand. So this accusation that they level against us, that we are anti-Semitic people, or we are anti-Semitic, we strongly defend that. And we say that criticism of a political entity cannot be anti-Semitism. Cannot be anti-Semitism. We are Muslims, we do not mix religion with politics. Anybody among us, if he criticizes the religion, we take the responsibility and we put him in check. But we Muslims respect Jews. The only animosity is against one faction, and that's the faction of Zionists, and that's it. And it's in 100 years. My time is already over, but this one last thing that I want to mention, one of the other point that I wanted to mention, which was a very important point, is that it's a very controversial point, and people say this again and again. So what do you think about, the political faction of Palestinian people? What do you think about this tactic of the Palestinian people? What do you think about their suicide bombing? Why don't you condemn this group or that group? And you all know which groups that they are talking about. We all know about these groups. Why don't you condemn this group and that group? And they put the responsibility on us. But my brothers and sisters in Islam, understand that this is a very trick question. And this is a very selective and partial question. They want to trap you into criticizing one tactics while you ignore their own tactics. There are many more than this one point of criticism. And we say, and I said it publicly, I condemn every single terrorist attack in which innocent lives are targeted. I condemn them. And I have no problem condemning suicide bombing, because the school of thought that I follow, the scholars that I follow, they consider suicide bombing to be un-Islamic. So I don't have any problem condemning it. But if I am willing to condemn one terrorist tactic, if I am willing to condemn a terrorist tactic, are you willing to condemn your terrorist tactics of your side? Look at the number. Look at the number each side. Look at the facts, look at the statistics. Look at the reality. For every single Israeli who has been killed, there are more than 10 Palestinians that have been killed in his place, only in the last 6 years. Look at the statistic. Look at the weapon, there is no comparison. Israel has one of the most advanced army, one of the most advanced weaponry in the entire world. Even the army of this country does not stand a chance in front of them. What to talk about the Palestinian people? They don't even have a proper army. Look at who is arresting whom. There are 0 Israeli languishing in the jails of Palestine. There are over 10,000 Palestinian people languishing in the Israeli jails. Look at who is putting economic pressure on whom. Unemployment rate in Israel, less than 4%. Unemployment rate in Gaza, around 50%. Around 50%. So don't just come to me and quote one tactic. And I'm willing to condemn that tactic. But are you willing to condemn 100 tactics? I'm willing to talk against suicide bombing, but are you willing to talk against the apartheid regime of the state of Israel? Are you willing to accept that your own American president, Jimmy Carter, American president, he said that Gaza is the largest open air prison in the entire world? Are you willing to accept that? Are you willing to accept that Nelson Mandela and Desmond Tutu, and they are neither Christians, nor they are anti or pro anything. They lived under the apartheid regime of South Africa. And they said whatever is happening in Palestine is worse than the apartheid regime of South Africa. And by the way, they both of them, Nelson Mandela, Desmond Tutu, both of them are Christians from South Africa. Are you willing to accept that? Are you willing to admit that? Don't just quote one tactic. I condemn that tactic, but are you willing to accept all of that? And with this I conclude. That's why, my dear respected brothers and sisters in Islam, every single Muslim need to be aware, need to be knowledgeable. You cannot win an argument if you're an ignorant person. You cannot win an argument if you don't know what you're supposed to say. And I reference you one website. I don't just want to give you, the problems. I want to tell you the solution. I just reference you one website. The name of this website is, write it down, make a note, www.ifamericanknew.org. It's a beginning website that all of us should be aware of, and it's a very good website from where you can learn some basic statistic, basic facts, basic reality. And this site was made, by the way, a Christian lady, not a Muslim person, a Christian lady, Alison Weir. She visited Israel, it changes her perspective, then she wrote so many books, she made this website. Go and check that website, it's a reliable source. But at the end, the only thing that I can say, I'm not offering any solution. But what I'm saying is that more than making dua for the Palestinian people, we should also make some effort. Study the reality. Study the reality. Be knowledgeable. Be aware of what is going on in the world. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us understanding. May Allah keep us united in this dunya. May Allah reunite us in the hereafter. Wa akhu dawana alhamdulillah.